let everyone know. So, welcome to Educator in VR's Fireside Chat to discuss the United Nations Virtual Reality YOUNGA Forum, organized by Bridging the Gap Ventures for the Abundance Digital community. And so, thank you very much for hosting this, allowing us to have this conversation with the Abundance community. Peter, for those who are listening to this on demand, Peter Diamandis' organization, Abundance Digital Group, is made up of 2,000 plus leaders, entrepreneurs, and learners, where we engage and learn from the founders and CEOs to explore upcoming technologies to continue to disrupt industries. So just a little bit about myself. I'm Doug Hohulin, and I work for Nokia and used to work for Motorola for now over 30 years in the telecommunication. I'm working from 1G to 5G communication on AR, VR, autonomous vehicles, AI, smart city technology, energy, IoT, and digital health projects. My focus is the elimination of the 1.35 million road deaths in the next 10 years. I'm also passionate about where energy, communication, and information is too cheap to meter and available for all to help with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm looking forward to this talk and looking forward to a dialogue with both educators in VR and the YOUNGA organization. So with that, Kelly, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Lavelle, CEO of Bridging the Gap Ventures and founding chair of the YOUNGA Forum. I'm so pleased to be here today with our partner educators in VR and discuss and connect with the Abundance Digital community. My focus is bridging opportunity gaps for the next generation to prepare for the future. My passion is making sure young change makers don't just have the skills to adapt, but to thrive in the future of work. We focus specifically on accessible skills education and youth-led innovation, with a focus on how youth can achieve and accelerate the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that's really kind of the founding principles that birthed the YOUNGA Forum, which I can explain in a little bit as well. But I'm very pleased to connect with you all today.
Excellent. And Daniel, can you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. First of all, Doug, thank you for having us, present with you and chat with you. I'm looking forward to this conversation a lot. My name's Daniel Dubosky-Bryant. I'm co-founder of Educators in VR with Laurel Van Vossen and Donna McTaggart. And Educators in VR is a company that is kind of developing a community, a cross-platform community of educators, teachers, trainers, researchers, developers around the topic of education and virtual reality in particular, but also augmented reality. And we've been going for about 2 years with the express mission of making this more accessible to classrooms and to educators and thereby students, so the upcoming generation, although we do consider all people of all ages learners. So it's about not just the young generation for us, it's about everyone. And we've been running events in virtual reality across different platforms like AltSpace, Engage, Roomy, Somnium Space, for this community of people. A lot of them are kind of grassroots people who are discovering virtual reality. They have a headset, they join our events, and these events are like training, how to get started with education VR, but also we invite people like yourself, Doug. You joined us on one of our meetups, which was wonderful. So we invite kind of industry leaders, but also people who are on the ground doing this with their learners. And we try to reach a whole broad spectrum of people in this industry, which I feel we're doing very successfully. And I think one of the highlights we had was in February, just before COVID-19 shut everything down. We ran a 6-day 2020 International Educators in VR Summit, which was, looking back, quite a remarkable event. And we're very, very pleased to be involved with Bridging the Gap and the YOUNGA Forum and Kelly Lavelle on this upcoming event, which we'll be talking about shortly. And maybe I'll say a couple of more words about Educators in VR, but that's me, Daniel.
Well, excellent. No, I really appreciate that. Do you want to? I think the first time I met you actually was at that summit, and that's where I learned about educators in VR and was just excited about the opportunities of virtual reality for education. So, why is access to education through VR important?
Um,
Uh,
well, access to education in principle and as such is important, and we're still not getting it right as a human race. There's still too much of a gap, which is where bridging the gap comes in, between people who have access and people who don't. So that's already a challenge with or without VR. Now with COVID-19, it takes on a new twist because a lot more education is going digital, and um, we're already feeling there people who don't have either strong enough devices or a broadband connection that allows for a good connection with their learning institution. There's a digital divide there. So we have the original gap. Now we have a digital gap, and you might say that VR is creating another gap where even less people have these devices. But we're looking at it from the long term, but also from the potential. So the difference between a video call like this, online learning like this, and the immersive collaboration of VR is really, it's like talking about going scuba diving and going scuba diving. You can't describe it to somebody. So maybe we'll get a bit more into the potential of VR, but what we're discovering, the indications for the future is very powerful, and so we want to be a part of the solution in bringing this to as many people around the world as we can with industry partners.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, and along with having educators in VR, there's also students are giving presentations in VR as well.
exactly.
In fact, I listened to a couple. Was able to, in off VR to join some of those sessions. So,
Right.
can you talk about some of the student engagement and student leadership and why that's important?
I love to. I love to. So the whole thing means nothing if there's no students involved from an educators and VR point of view. And one of the most exciting developments out of the summit is we kind of met a woman called Angelina Dayton, aka the VR lady, who's with the Cherokee Nation in the USA, the Cherokee Navajo peoples there, and she has taken on students in VR with our educators in VR support, and she's bringing a whole um, tier of students who are excited about this technology, who are getting involved. And it's no longer kind of top down. It's not educators teaching these young people. They're teaching us. They're getting involved. They're giving the presentations there, and they'll be integral with this Younga event as well, um, where yeah, that's the whole point. Is not for it to be top down one way, but to listen to the young people, to learn from the young people. The rate they're learning at is amazing.
Excellent. Well, Kelly, can you talk a little bit about what's going on with the Younga event and how some of the Abundance Digital community and others could get involved, especially those who are over 30?
Yes, of course. So to give you a little bit of background, Younga was inspired of UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. It's a very important year this year. It's the United Nations 75th anniversary. It's also the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action for Gender Equality. And it's the start of the Decade for Action. So it's a year that's kind of a start of foundation for new beginnings and celebration. And within that, it was seemed as a perfect timing then to really think about what is the role of young people in UNGA, and realize that there wasn't a platform that is really connecting for intergenerational and multi-sector solutions where tomorrow and today's leaders could come together. And so Younga serves to do that using a virtual reality. We will be one of the largest virtual reality events to date for global unity and youth action for our future. It's a blended, borderless learning experience for young people where they can connect with peers in an immersive environment. And one of my favorite things about VR and why we chose to use VR is with the spatial awareness and the interactivity that you can add, it adds a new dynamic compared to 2D that tends to bring a stronger human connection and emotional response. It really breeds a ground where you can facilitate and teach compassion and global understanding. And you could use simulations, 3D models, and things to truly bring concepts to life or see the world in different perspectives. And so my hope is through using these emerging technologies, we can continue to break down borders and walls and barriers that young people face in accessing the mentorship, education, or resources that they need to not only just make an impact, but also understand their potential and build their skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing, as you mentioned, with access to technology, the digital divide and the barriers there are still quite apparent. And I think building this event has really opened eyes to that. Is adoption to virtual reality is not that great still. Like there's so much you can do with virtual reality, but the amount of people that are aware of what you can do with virtual reality and have tried it or has been exposed to it is still a very small percentage.
Right.
I think we're coming along with being able to do 3D web and bringing virtual reality to web browsers and smartphones. That changes the game when you no longer need a headset to be able to access some of this learning and experience. But I definitely feel that that's still such a critical divide that collectively, I think all parties on this call shares a passion to wanting to bridge. Oh, you're mute.
Thank you. Yeah. Daniel, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah. I think we're in a very interesting time, one that we didn't really choose. And for virtual reality, it's had a tremendous impact. I mentioned the summit we did in February, and that in itself was quite a remarkable event because we had really everybody in the VR education space was part of that one event. And so the community was coming together already. And for the next week, COVID to shut down pretty much globally every worldwide event that you can think of, to have just delivered a model of how it could work was very exciting. And we got a lot of calls afterwards, asking us, and we've now kind of gone into the event support and event production business, if you like, is how I met Kelly with YOUNGA. And there's a long way to go with this, but if we're going to reach the students, and let's be honest, it's about the students, it's about the learners. The bottleneck is really the educators. It's not gonna reach the students, even if they have devices and content. It's not going to reach them in a meaningful learning way unless we have educators who can keep up with the youth. And it is that way. It's not leading them; it's keeping up with the youth. So there's a lot of professional development that we're offering. We offer training, we're working on certified training for educators around the world. We're looking for partners to help us build that out. We are delivering a number of other very exciting events. We just yesterday finished the Global Human Resources Summit with Bento HR and Microsoft in AltSpace VR. It was a 3-day summit. It was very, very exciting. And you're seeing now more and more high-profile speakers attend these events. And I think the difference, or what's, we're talking about acceleration of these technologies, Doug, right? We you know all about acceleration technologies, and aside from COVID-19 making this more of a requirement and therefore more demand for these kind of services, I would say in the last 2 years, an aspect of virtual reality called social VR has accelerated. You need multiplayer platforms to do this on. And the community there, as the devices have become more accessible and more available, more and more people are joining in these social VR platforms. And that in turn is creating communities. And I'm starting to think about a tier of society appearing in VR. You're talking about 6G being coming down the line at some point soon. It won't be long before we have a whole tier of society taking part in virtual reality. I'm convinced of that. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So Yeah,
Well,
Kelly.
we already have virtual reality cities, Daniel, right? Like there's virtual reality offices getting built
Yep.
and in communities. So I don't think we're too far off from that.
Yeah, what's very nice actually is that education is actually a driving force. I heard somebody speak at the summit 2 days ago saying that traditionally education can kind of be behind the developments a little bit, but it seems like this technology actually suits education in a big way, and that educators are helping drive the adoption, the development, the content creation. This is very exciting.
Well, excellent. Yes, I'm very excited for these events coming up with the UN and getting youth involved in the vision of virtual reality. I think
Yeah.
that's very important. Could you talk a little bit more because a lot of youth don't have head mounted displays. They don't have those headsets. How can they be engaged just using a PC or even a tablet if they only have that?
Okay, so there's a number of devices. I would say that virtual reality is kind of a spectrum. People have various different definitions for what virtual reality is. You can join virtual reality on a laptop, on a computer, in 2D, kind of like you would join Minecraft, right? Minecraft is a type of a virtual game, a virtual platform, a 3D space. And it's social, you can meet other people there. When it becomes really impactful is when you use a VR headset, something like this, a device like that. You put it on your head. You have two controllers like this. And between your eyes being immersed in that space and you having virtual hands to interact with the space, it really transports your mind. I very clearly remember my first experience, which was a virtual tour of the International Space Station. And at the time, I was using my mobile phone to access that. I don't know where it is right now. Yeah, it goes into a little device, and essentially you're looking at it like this. My mind had been transported by my mobile phone into the into the International Space Station, and I couldn't believe, A, that my phone was able to do that, and I didn't know, and B, that I was just so convinced that I was in there looking around. Um, and when you get a taste of VR like that through a device, it really it really leaves a mark, and you make memories in a different way. When you make a friend in VR, you can hug them, you can shake their hand, you can go and walk into a corner and have a chat. Um, the affordances are really remarkable, and it's my my absolute passion at the moment to enable other people to see that, to help them have a good experience, to help them understand what it can do, and why we need a concerted effort to really make this available around the world.
Excellent. And it's my understanding that there could be headsets available for some students. Is that
I'll let
how would
Kelly
that
speak
be?
to that. I'll let Kelly speak to that.
Yeah, so for Younga itself, the way what we've set it up is we've shortlisted 1,500 youth delegates from over 100 nonprofit partners around the world. Our partners reach 244 nations of the world, so we've gotten a pretty good coverage. And those 1,500 youth delegates will receive access to a free 4-week bespoke leadership and advocacy training program, of which they will start off at the end of this September 28th to 30th. We will be kicking off with 35 live masterminds in virtual reality led by experts in their field and influencers related to our 5 thematic tracks, which cover pretty much the underlying categories of the Sustainable Development Goals: climate, education and work, peace and social justice, equality and inclusion, and mental health and well-being. And so those youth will participate in all these interactive, intimate environments, whether they're we have multi-stakeholder roundtables with UN agencies, we have hackathons for our future, and skill building workshops that help upskill them. As Daniel mentioned, if they don't have a headset, they will be able to access through PC web browser or a smartphone, which really makes this more accessible. We do still have a couple 2D webinars and things thrown in there for those to come together who don't have access to VR completely, but for the most part, we are working with partners to make sure they can have access to one of those three methods. And then as we train them and the 4-week program ends, we kick it off as a finale at UN Day. So we start at UNGA, we end at UN Day on October 24th with a VR spectacular. And this is very similar to what Daniel described as his first experience. In this VR spectacular, we have some fireside chats with influencers and special guest speakers, but then we have these really cool immersive journeys with a couple headliner performers where we literally, as our finale, will be taking a ride in our spaceship around Earth to meet our youth delegates across the different continents, which will be a really just incredible experience. I think the best way to describe it is if you've ever been to like a 4D ride at an amusement park where you go in and you feel immersed and you can feel the emotion and the journey as opposed to just watching it. That is really what you will feel in these performances.
Well, excellent. So if there's a youth that's interested in being part of a delegate, is there still an opportunity, or is that already filled up?
This is our last week, so if they are interested in coming in, they can go to youngadelegate.com and they can apply and save their seat. If they aren't able to get into the youth delegation, our main VR spectacular in October is open to everyone across the world, so there'll be lots more opportunities for them to engage in that. But certainly, if they're interested in that 4-week leadership opportunity, which they'll meet a lot of really cool leaders and experts, I really encourage them to apply.
Okay, that's people from 15 to 30 years old. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. So the youth delegates 15 to 30. Any of our more mature change makers, you're welcome to be part of our VR spectacular. There's no age limit on that one.
Okay, excellent. No, I would encourage people to be engaged from all ages. I'm really excited about this. I like I said, I've been in the cellular business for the last 30 years, and I'm very familiar with how do you, as Daniel mentioned, how do we get a billion of something? We got our first billion cell phones in 2002, which is actually exactly 200 years after we had a billion humans on the planet, and a billion smartphones in 2011. And then, there's different billions are happening.
Right.
And I have a list of about 50 different billions that are out there, either in the past or in the future. And, what actually, a lot of different people are predicting it by 2027, there'll be a billion VR devices that people will be engaged with. So for those of you that say, well, will VR really happen? It kind of reminds me of when in the 80s and 90s when people were saying, well, will cell phones really happen, or will smartphones really happen? And then there's this explosion of growth. So I am really passionate and excited about this technology. I think there's going to be very interesting technology coming out by many different companies in the next 2 to 3 years that will just revolutionize the head-mounted displays, the network that will drive this, the processing power, the content, and of course, the key factor in all this is the youth and the people using this and engaging. You talk about the UN development goals, and I'm really passionate about those as well. Being part of Nokia, we're really focused on the UN goals as well. And we really care about climate. We care about education and work, equality and justice. And I'm just really could see how when people are engaged in VR from you go from someone who's, we tend to be friendly with our neighbors and we think of our strangers as people around the world. Well, VR eliminates that. So I'm just really excited about those things.
Right.
So along that line,
I fully agree with you. I was just going to say, I fully agree with you in terms of the trajectory. You look at cell phones and so on. I feel it's going to be a similar thing. Like your cell phones started off as clunkier phones, and then they got flip phones, and then you get smoother and bigger and lighter. And I think that's really just where we're going with VR. It's not a matter of if it's staying, it's more just streamlining the technology to be lighter, more efficient, and allow people to engage at longer periods of time within the devices themselves. But I will give you another billion to add to your list, and that's 2 billion young people between the ages of 15 to 30 that we would like to mobilize and engage around the world.
Excellent. Absolutely. Daniel, you want to add to that? I'm
Yeah,
going to just pop up. I see I lost my video. I'm going to see if I can get back into
sure.
video. So please talk for the next few minutes as
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
getting back in.
Absolutely. Yeah, one aspect of this upcoming Junga event that I'm really excited about is that it's kicking off a 10-year initiative, right? It's linked with the UN's Decade of Action. That's significant for me. Doing an event in itself is exciting and meaningful, but the Decade of Action, it's kind of, I find myself almost forgetting sometimes because of coronavirus. The situation we're in is that we had considerable challenges before that we still need to fix. And so now more than ever, we need to pull together. Everybody has to pull together. Industry, educators, students. We have to build these bridges. There is no time to lose. The challenges are bigger than ever, but we can do it if we build together, if we work together, we pull together, and you know, we will need technology to fix this. And I believe virtual reality can play a very meaningful role in helping to build these bridges. The level of so I've met Doug in VR. I've met Kelly in VR. I've never met you in person, but I have a memory of meeting you. That's valid for me. I have a memory of shaking Doug's hand and doing a sharing a presentation space with you. It's a 3D spatial memory in my mind, where I hear your tone of voice. I can see your body language to a degree. I see your interactions. Um, Having this level of connection. Really, for me, it's about connectivity. It's about connection. When you're building bridges, you want to connect people, and connecting people like this through a screen is a good start. That's where the technology is at for most people. But once you actually climb inside to this screen, like you can get inside, and I can come and shake your hand. That's really what we're doing. Like I'm climbing into that camera, I'm climbing into the space with you, and we can't only do what we can do in the real world, we can do impossible stuff. We can we can ride on the back of a whale on the moon. We can go underwater. We can swim with sharks without getting wet. I mean, we say this and it's not quite the same, but it's getting to the point where it is more and more convincing. When VR is done at a certain level, I feel that your mind is willing to ignore the discrepancies and take it as a real experience. And so actually it activates the part of your mind that makes memories in the real world. So it's that kind of powerful. And if I can be a small part with other people in building bridges using this technology, then that's what my mission is. That's what I am setting out to do: connect people of all natures and all countries and all races. You know, yes,
Well, I think that's one cool, really element to VR as well that is it's talked about as that actually, in some ways, increases access and removes barriers that would normally be kind of discrimination in the workplace or in education environments, in the sense that you can go in there and I can be an alien, I can be purple skin, I can be whatever I want. Like I can really step outside of the identities and constructs that society has for me and just be free and freely speak to people without fear of judgment in that way either. So it really helps individuals, I believe, in some ways with self discovery, learning how to speak up and discover their voice, and in some ways also learn how to network and socialize because
right,
um, although it is intimidating still in a virtual environment to go up to a stranger,
right,
you can learn and you can practice.
yeah,
And similarly though with training, right? Like you can simulate a fire and you can train people on first aid and things in an environment that is now more cost effective.
yeah,
Actually, probably it's better for memory retention and so on because you can do it over and over. Like there's so many elements that you could dig into in
right,
terms of the benefits of VR. And the last one I will say, because you're talking about SDGs, is carbon footprint. The carbon footprint that you save now, having to fly everyone in
right,
to do an event, you're seeing this now. Events that are normally 100 people, 1,000 people, even just doing virtual events this year, they've expanded that to 20,000 people and 30,000 people
right.
online just by making it more accessible.
On that note, when we did the summit in February, we had somebody calculate, I forget who it was, unfortunately, but we had somebody calculate what a comparative real world event would have cost in carbon footprint versus the virtual event. We took into account servers, and we didn't just kind of take the easy route of what we saved. We did calculate what a virtual event cost, and we had a 95% carbon footprint savings. 95%. And that's just carbon footprint. I mean, people saved time; they could stay with their families. People saved money; they didn't have to fly. Um, and when a virtual event is done well, you still get to have the networking opportunity, because let's be honest, when you go to a conference, oftentimes it's the moments in between the talks that you remember, or that is maybe carries the greater value. The connections and the networking you have there. And when VR is done well, you still you still can deliver that, or you can still keep hold of that aspect. Um, and so, one thing I wanted to say, Kelly mentioned about memory retention and so on. There is a growing body of work coming out speaking to this, but it's also easy to get a little bit carried away. Like, VR is the end solution to all of this. We're not there yet, and there are things that will always be better done face to face, or even just on a video call. You don't need VR for everything. But when you get VR right for education or for collaboration, um, it is special. So we need to remember that the potential at the moment is, well, as always is the case, but we look at what's possible, but what we're actually doing at the moment, while it's formidable, we still have a long way to go, or a lot of mileage to get out of this technology, and I'm excited for that journey, which is kind of what we're trying to do with Educators in VR, trying to get the right people, the passionate people together to talk and share and collaborate, but then also, test it and try and break it and find out what isn't working, where do we need to fix it, what do we need to improve, because this is so new. I've been a teacher, I've been an educator for 20 years. Teaching and talking in VR is different. You need different skills. Some skills are the same, and it's just sharing that with everybody else on the ground in the same situation. That's a really fertile ground for discovering how to do that. So please, anybody interested in Educators VR or education and virtual reality, please find www.educatorsvr.com and find our Discord. Love to have you join the community there as well.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that. Vivek, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was fascinated when in 2002, I started teaching online.
Yes.
Out of my learning experience. And is there a simple way to say, how do you learn about the VR experiences? And I know I have been in a couple of the meetings with Doug when everybody else jumped onto uh, uh, the fireside chats, and I didn't know how to actually join and which particular first headset should I get. And because it's almost like teaching an old guy, how to read and write who never learned it.
I'd love to help you with that, Vivek. So, sorry.
I think we lost you.
Yeah, no,
your audio.
my mic was off. I'd love to help you with that, Vivek. So, with regards to devices, if you want to get a headset, I could recommend maybe one of two or three. One is the HTC Vive Focus Plus, or any device by HTC Vive would be good. There's a company called Oculus, you may know, by Facebook. They make devices. And the third one is Pico Neo, or Pico is another company. They make these kind of devices. So those three, and HP make good devices. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a range. And a direct way, many of the platforms you can actually access in 2D. So if you want to get started, you might download Altspace or Engage, those two device platforms, or another one could be, I'm thinking Sansar VR Chat. You could download these and you could try it out on your computer PC first.
Oh, okay.
And then when you're ready with your headset, then you can kind of dive in if you like. But if you want any help, reach out, please, Vivek. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this event. I think because this may be a first opportunity for people to get different headsets coming out, and then over the next 2 3 years.
Right.
It's kind of be like an iPhone. Every year we'll be looking for the next headset, more better battery life, better visualization, and other areas that I think will make it more and more. Like I say, in the next 3 or 4 years, I think we'll be putting on our glass, just like we put on our glasses.
Right.
We'll put on our VR headsets, and we'll just happen to just arrive in wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
My feel is humans are very visual and spatial people, creatures.
Yeah.
And so we need that, like the problem with Zoom and or Google or whatever, 2D event that we're doing, like right now, we only have a screen, we're in a screen, and, we don't have that 3D capability to reach out and touch someone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really think, like right now we're doing a great experiment on education of how students are doing in Zoom, right?
Yes.
Everyone's going to Zoom. I have teacher friends who are having to teach in Zoom.
Yeah.
And my guess is if you were watching the students, how do they learn in the classroom versus how do they learn in a Zoom event?
Yeah.
My guess is it's only 10% learning. If I haven't seen the data, but my guess is I'd be surprised if it's much more than 10%.
Well, because you have to remember that also you're not getting kinetic learning or anything, right? Like the ones that are hands-on. In VR, you can still get, like, I can use my VR controllers and pick up a ball or turn it or throw it. Like I can move my body. There's an element of kinetics there that you don't have in the 2D environment. And I would say, even for those that are visual learners, the Zoom 2D, there's something about a passive learning experience there where it feels too much like watching.
Right.
And being told or talked to, that I find personally it's very easy for an individual to zone out or to kind of think about other things or just not remember what is really spoken to during a Zoom chat, the same way that I loved how Daniel articulated that he had a 3D memory. I think that's the best way you can describe it is once you add a spatial component, your senses are immersed so they can't get distracted as much, right? Instead of one sense, you're immersing 5 senses. Well, maybe you don't have smell, but so maybe 4 senses. But the more senses you have, the more the fully present you were in. Presence. I think it's really around presence because you are fully present in that experience. It's much harder for your mind to go off and think about something else when you're in that because you have to be too alert and engaged in that experience.
I agree with you, Doug, about the device. Sorry, Vivek.
No, go ahead. I was just talking about, this reminds me of my effort to have the one laptop per child program that I became part of and trying to spread that in India back in the 90s. And this seems like an opportunity to get a one VR set for every child.
Yes.
How can I get myself started with my grandkids, at least right now, to say, hey, we are going to have this thing, and I'm looking at it as a Christmas gift for them.
Vivek, I'd love to help you with that. I'd love to connect with you about that, to help your grandkids have some devices, but also maybe beyond. If you're thinking about, we're very much aligned with that. We want not only to make the content and the training and the skills available, we want to work with industry partners to try and figure out the solution or solutions to what we were saying about the hardware and the connection.
Yeah.
So, that's
because right now, for example, in India, there's a huge 5G initiative that is underway. And there's a plan whereby we can have within the next 3 years, they are talking about a national rollout of 5G.
Wow.
And Google and Facebook have both partnered, but on the ground, there's a lot of things that have to be done.
Yeah.
And it was from that perspective that I am so thankful to Doug for posting this and giving me an opportunity to attend this.
Yeah.
I looked at the Younga thing and I said, what an amazing opportunity for my grandkids. That's where I first looked at it. But then I said, it is like a one laptop per child program.
Yeah. I mean,
in the ultimate, I was going to say the ultimate challenge. I love that, and to be honest with you, I think an amazing opportunity would be if we could get some of the big telecoms and those tech leaders to just come together to create an initiative around making devices available to young people. In our younger community alone, within our nonprofit partners, we already reach 15 million young people between the ages of 15 to 30 across 244 countries that we could immediately equip with those devices if we had the partner support. So I would think the entire, you could transform education through that, because youth who, like, I'm even thinking in countries right now where like it's difficult for youth to get to schools. If they had headsets, they could participate in those lessons on their own time in a way that they don't have to trek miles to go to a school, or they can deal with their family obligations and still have those learning experiences. It would really transform.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you.
Kelly, we are looking at two things: affordability and accessibility.
Right.
And the issue of accessibility. But I again go back to Doug's whole old company of current company of Nokia. I mean, they are the ones who equipped India with the cell phones more than any other single organization in the beginning.
Right.
And right now, when we look at this whole initiative, I became part of the National Knowledge Commission, which was set up by PMO's office in 2005 to figure out how can we use technology in India to leapfrog into 21st century. And that's how I got exposed to a lot of these initiatives from UNESCO and so on. And the problem always becomes is, what is the affordability? What is the reality of affordability? And everybody wants the private partners, but how can we, what is the real cost? And that's where I think India has been a very forward thing in saying, let's make 4G available on a national basis.
You're absolutely right. Affordability is always a challenge with regards to these devices. And we have this challenge when we're talking to educators and educational institutions. The first question is how much do these devices cost? And actually, it's that's a good question to have, because the answer is no more than a laptop. And schools have a budget for a laptop. So the devices now.
Schools have moved in the budget for laptop actually, and I looked at a school called GEMS in Chicago, where one of my grandkids goes, and that they have set up. They are trying to be the first international baccalaureate program internationally, and I'm saying to myself, most of the kids they're going there have no problem in paying, a reasonable amount. If you were to make this available. The question becomes is, what is that amount? Who is going to support them? And I would like to introduce these kind of products. If only I knew how to use.
Go on, Doug.
Yeah, one comment. Alvin Graylin, who's the president of HTC China, he has a great slide that talks about going the number of screens. And like right now we're in peak screens, and where eventually, kids won't be on devices that are looking down. They'll have headsets, they'll have smart glasses, or they'll be looking up. And I think that the way we're going to get to 1 billion VR, AR devices is where it will be integrated into your glasses. And like you put on your glasses, you put on smart glasses, and it gives you so much more information. So I'm
but if we have something currently, we should start to kind of get the flow down, and that's what is exciting to me. And I looked at the Younga thing, and just hearing Kelly and her passion, God, I get encouraged myself.
I want to say just a quick word about you were saying how to use the devices. The way that the developers have designed it. If you know how to use a smartphone, you will have no problem with a VR headset. It is built so intuitively. You recognize the interfaces. Okay, there's a couple of buttons you have to figure out with the controllers there, but 20 minutes, half an hour, and you get the hang of it. They've made the design of these things is really they're trying. One of the words that comes up a lot is friction. And so friction of adoption, friction of accessibility, friction of these things. And they're doing a very, very good job. The industry is doing a very, very good job gradually at removing layers of friction, getting there. And that's what happens when you get people together in the same room, in the same space, with the same passion to make this happen. I think we've crossed the threshold. There was a question for a while, is VR going to take off? Is it going to last? Because it had a couple of cycles in the past where it went quiet again. But I don't see this going quiet anymore now. We've crossed the threshold, I think, where we will reach 1 billion devices, like Doug says. We will get this in the hands of millions and billions of students and teachers around the world. I think the future is spatial.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the question to that is who will be behind making sure those billion devices get in the hands of people? It's really going to be who are the market leaders that are going to step up to that mission. And I think there's a huge opportunity right now. The biggest thing is with the VR in itself is innately, to your point, it's not just intuitive for it. It innately inspires creativity and imagination. And when we look at AI, when we look at robotics, when we look at all that field, the one thing all experts confirm, and the one thing there's agreement on, is the thing that makes us human, the thing that right now AI cannot compete, is our creativity and imagination, the ability to connect completely unrelated things together and create something out of that. Right. And I think the more we can foster that in our youngest and our new leaders, the better world we can create.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Well, we're coming towards the end of our talk.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, Daniel, I'll work with you. I'll put the links below. Both this hopefully will be on YouTube, the video recording, as well as how people can get engaged. I'll post it in the Abundance Digital community site so they can get more engaged in that.
Lovely. Yeah.
We're just looking forward to how if any community technology leaders are listening to this, I really highly encourage you to consider being part of this in some way.
Yes.
Because there's so many opportunities, either as an individual mentor, as your company can be involved. So I'll go around, just let each one of us close for a few thoughts. But one thing I wanted to mention is internet.org, which Nokia and Facebook are part of. They talk about access for the connecting to the internet, which I think VR is the same thing. Is they talk about access and affordability, but after that, it's readiness and relevant to people's lives. And so I think in the next 5 years, we're going to have access and affordability solved.
Right.
That technology will solve that. The human challenge will be, is it relevant to each other's lives? Why do it? Yeah. And then is there education? Is there the readiness that they can use this technology? There's great opportunity if they only know how to engage. Just think of the internet. There's great opportunities for the internet if you only know how to use the internet.
Right.
But for a student who doesn't know how to engage in the internet, he's lost the information of the entire knowledge base of the world.
Indeed.
So the question is how do we make it relevant to students? How do we have the readiness so they're ready to use this technology? And I really think that this YOUNGA Forum is one way to help these trailblazers as this technology gets better and better for the masses, that these students, these young people, these 30 and unders, are trailblazers to trailblaze for the billion students that will come after them. So, I just really am excited for this event, and that's why, I'm glad to be part of this fireside chat.
Yeah.
And so looking forward to promoting it as much as I can.
Thank you.
So with that, Vivek, do you want to say a few words before we then pass it on to Kelly and Daniel?
No, this has been an astounding experience for me to have joined digital community itself, Abundance Digital. And is there anything that I can do, having been involved with this as a passion, but not having enough background technical knowledge?
Okay, well, appreciate you joining for this talk.
Thank you,
Kelly?
Vivek. We'd love to,
Any
yeah, if you want to get involved, we'd love to take the conversation further. Maybe we can exchange emails. I'm sure with your
Yeah, I
experience.
was trying to put all that information on the chat box here, but somehow I'm not able to reach the.
Yeah, Vivek, if you send me the information, I'll forward it on to Daniel.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just a
Yeah.
quick note about how do we make it relevant to students. To a degree, that's quite easy. We teach them how to use it, and then we get out of their way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my role as an educator. Here's how you use it. Be careful here. Think of that. Here's some couple of skills, and stand back and watch the magic happen. When students get in VR, the creativity is just crazy. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Doug, for having us on this call. Vivek, it's been a pleasure hearing about your involvement in this and your passion for it. Please, reach out, anybody else watching or listening. We'd love for you to get in touch with us at Educators in VR and Bridging the Gap, or through Doug, if you like. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to do this together. So please, if you halfway interested in this, get in touch.
Yes, I just add to that at the end of the day, this initiative is built on collaboration and building bridges. So if we can build bridges to what you're doing and involve you in this, we just amplify our collective impact. So please do reach out. It was a pleasure to meet with you, Vivek and Doug. Thank you for having us on this chat. And yeah, I look forward to connecting and hopefully see you all during our Younga debut coming up the weekend of October 24th.
Yeah. Well, just in closing, so there's all of us know about Ready Player One, right? The book and then the movie, and just shows a vision of virtual reality. Well, actually, in November, they're coming out with a new book called Ready Player Two.
I heard this.
I'm really excited for that book. And, one thing is, this is about connecting the unconnected and connecting with each other, right? And that's why we're in this. Right. And I just say in closing is, we're going from a Ready Player One world to hopefully a Ready Player Two, where we're playing, where there's one of us, right? Ready multiple. And so I'm just really excited about how virtual reality, how this could connect the world so that we can all be Ready Players Two and beyond. So I'm really excited about this connectivity. So with that,
moving from the me to the we, I love it.
So with that, just looking forward for those who are listening to be engaged, and look at the links below. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.